One of the things I've heard in speaking with a Lyme patient is, but I never got bit by a tick before. Another thing I've also heard that's a little bit upsetting is I was told that I'm just going to have to live with Lyme. Today's guest experienced the first, but didn't accept the second part of that. And he's living his life right now, healthy and happy. He came to our center with crippling fatigue and nervous system dysfunction, yet today, he's a father, a builder, and not just a Lyme survivor, but a Lyme thriver whose illness left him healthier than before. This is the story of life after Lyme with Matt Rutigliano. Matt, so nice of you to join us. Happy to have you.
All right. Happy to be here.
Listen, we were just chatting right before we jumped into the intro, and you brought up a number of things, and I want to address one at a time, because you were not of the type that knew you had Lyme right away, meaning you got bit and then you got sick. You didn't have a red bullseye. You didn't see a tick ever on you. So can you talk us through how did you get from not having any kind of indications, living your life healthy, to then understanding you had Lyme without ever seeing a tick?
Yeah. So for me, I was in my late 20s working in the Hamptons, building houses for the builder that I moved out here to work for. And I was, young and energetic, always health conscious, always active in the gym. And I just recall all of a sudden not feeling my best, getting tired, having some, weird aches and pains in my back, things that weren't normal. And then it started into some serious anxiety and some depression and those symptoms. And that's when I, went to my doctor in the city, my family doctor, who we had a great relationship with. And I started scribbling notes down, and I was like, "Hey, doc, something's up. I'm not feeling right. And I just need to, like, what can I do about this? And he's like, okay, let's check it out. What are you dealing with? And we did blood work, and that went on for a year at least. So it was just and I didn't know. That's when this is back 2008, 2009. So things have come a long way since then, in terms of the community and everyone knowing a lot more about Lyme and about things. But I sort of had to become my own advocate and my own sort of detective, and started, talking to different people and figuring things out, making my own notes, and ultimately did so many different blood tests, but still had no luck with my doctor until I started looking at things through a different lens and going to the alternative route and talking to some local people out here in the Hamptons who were more familiar with Lyme and things like that, and those sort of symptoms. So that was the beginning of it, where I say, like, the wheels started to come off the bus. I was just didn't know what to to really how to address it. So that was the scary part in the beginning.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I speak to so many patients, that have dealt with Lyme, so many don't know at all that they have it, of course, for years. They get misdiagnosed, sometimes juvenile arthritis, rheumatoid, everything, could be chronic fatigue syndrome. And when you go to conventional doctors, they'll just go through the gambit of kind of taking guesses, put you on something, see what works, what doesn't. And Lyme patients suffer for many years with that. They go up and down. Of course, I don't know if you were on antibiotics, but when you go on them, you might feel a little better at first, and then you come back down after you get off or something, because the bacteria and the co-infections really can kind of, wait it out, wait those nuke bombs out and come back up.
For sure. When I stopped talking to my doctor in the city, kind of gave up, and then I went to see my landscape architect, and I become friendly with him, and he saw me, and he's like, "Whoa, you look horrible." He's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm shot, like this. I'm tired. I just don't feel right." He goes, "Hey, let's go talk to my wife," and she's a friend too, and she looked at me, she's like, "You ever consider Lyme?" So and I said, "No, and I never got bit by a tick. I don't, but I was certainly in uncleared fields. Looking back at it, I just did not do what I do now and have tick spray in the truck or even check myself. I was a city kid moving out here and just, I was just running around and just, but I never found anything on me, but I just, I didn't know enough back then. So she said to me, go back to your doctor and demand some doxycycline, and I did that. And just like you said, I felt immediately better. Yeah. So, and that's when I sort of started to dig my heels in a little bit. Went back to my doctor in the city, said, no, let's test for Lyme, let's test for this. But I probably, when I first out of the gates and then I found someone else in the city, I probably took almost 2 years of oral antibiotics. And, it worked until it didn't. And then I can't imagine what it did to my gut, looking back at it and how it messed up my microbiome and, candida, those sort of things, all things that it can lead to. Certainly happened, but
it's still the go-to treatment. It is the golden standard. If you have a bacterial infection, which is Lyme disease, it is Borrelia, then that is what conventional medicine throws at you. And you do feel better. So you're like, oh shit, it's working, right? There is hope in this. Yeah. I'm getting better and it's over. We are done with this. Wipe your hands clean and be like, move on, live on. And then it comes back. You're like, what the hell is that? Did your doctor, when it started to come back after you, took the doxycycline, the other antibiotics, was your doctor like, let's try something new? Or was he like, maybe it's in your head or maybe it's something else? What was the response?
Well, so my family practitioner never really, he gave me some doxy, but he was never convinced that it was Lyme, although I had all the symptoms and I had them written down. And I never got the proper diagnosis through the Western blot and through everything. So I kind of gave up with him. I found a specialist that was at a center in the city, and then we worked together. She gave me the longest duration of antibiotics, but she was kind of threw her hands up after a while and said, hey, you've been on these for too long. Some of these symptoms are candida symptoms and it's bleeding over. I think we need to consider, taking you off this. And, I wasn't feeling, and we sent my blood to, the lab in Palo Alto, IGNX, or I think that's, and I had a few bands, but not enough for the my insurance company to call it Lyme. So I even went back to her and I was like, I'm not getting better. I'm panicking. Can we do, what does it cost out of pocket to do the IV antibiotics? And she's like, no, that's crazy. That's like $1,000 a day, and then that's sort of where I stopped with her. And started looking at some more local, options here in the Hamptons and doing some more alternative stuff. But I was certainly, I was hitting dead ends for sure. After seeing a few people in the city and then, trying to figure it out through other routes.
Yeah. Most Lyme patients, they go through that, right? They navigate from their general practitioner to a specialist. They go through the antibiotics, then a little bit of alternative medicine. And all the time, you're just becoming more and more jaded, it seems like, because you're like, what's going to work here? It's been a couple of years now, probably in your case as well. And you start to doubt whether anyone can help you.
It was probably 5 years in by that point. And, you keep trying new things and you start scouring the internet and looking for options and that's a rabbit hole for sure. And you find things, you're like, looking at all the symptoms. Oh, I have that. That's me. Oh my God. But then you're also trying things, you find some good colloidal silver, or you find, other blogs that recommend certain things that work for them. So you try, some things work great, but once as you get, and it's funny because when I started this, I was younger, so I was still very social in my life. But one of the things, you kind of coin your own terms as you go through it. And I talk to my parents, my family, and say, I always just say to them, the longer it takes, the more serious you get at trying to get better, because I was still in my late 20s, and I had a lot of friends, and people would be going out on the weekends and hanging out and drinking and socially. And so I tightened up my diet, stopped with sugar. Not that I ever really was a big sugar person, but if you read and you say sugar is not good for inflammation, and then dairy and gluten, all those things, and then alcohol, of course, is part of that. And so then I said to myself, okay, well, I'll just drink one night a week. And then so you try that, and and then you get so hungover, any sort of alcohol you have, it just explodes, and any of the bacteria will feed off any of that bad stuff. So, that didn't work, and then you just like, okay, I'm gonna try and hang out with all my friends and not drink, or not, try to be social. And then I decided that didn't work. So then you got to dig a little hole and you got to hide from everybody. And then you're still trying to live your life and work. And, for me, I had started my business at that point, and I was fighting through it. And stress is another killer, which probably is my weakest link, through all of this. But it's just a battle the whole way through, and you got to kind of work through it and figure out what's working and what's not working and keep trying.
Yeah, this is the part of like that I hate, when people like, you got to live with Lyme, because as you mentioned, you're a young guy, that robs you of, what most young kids do: go out, drink, party late, do those things. It's not healthy, don't get me wrong, but it is the social construct. And even one night a week, I would say, in a healthy person, is not a bad thing in your 20s. Don't do it into your 40s and 50s and keep partying and like drinking. You probably can't, anyway. But I know so many people that say they were kind of robbed of those things, that their 20s weren't really there because they had to live with Lyme disease. And that's the part that really kind of pisses me off, when there are other doctors and, these organizations that are like, you're just going to have to live with it, and that has to be your life moving forward. I don't think that is a truthful statement. I do think everyone's different, but can you talk about what you even explained to me, what you mentioned to me, that you met someone, right? Then you told them you had Lyme, and they kind of gave you a response of, well, you may have to live with it. Like, can you go through?
Yeah, one of the first, right when I figured out it was Lyme, I saw my old boss and his girlfriend. We were at my favorite restaurant, one of my favorite restaurants out here that I used to go to on Fridays. And I ran into them, and they're like, "Hey, what's going on with you? I heard you're not feeling well, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Yeah, I figured out it's Lyme, and maybe some co-infections or whatever." And his girlfriend looked at me. She goes, "Oh, I have Lyme, or I had Lyme." She goes, "You'll never be the same, going forward." And I just, I was just like, "What? No way," and that was right out of the gates, and I thought that was crazy. And I was saying, "No, I'm not. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna get through it. And that's just me." My initial reaction, but as things took longer and longer and longer, and dead end after dead end and crossroad after crossroad, you think at your low points that maybe that she was right, and then you, like I said, you kind of. And one thing I've learned after hitting some tough periods, and even talking to some other friends of friends that have called me for advice and things like that, and what I said to this one guy was, every day it's a battle, and you have your ups and downs. And then when you hit your bad days, it's okay to say, all right, you won. I need to sleep. I gotta take a nap. I gotta, regroup, and that's okay. Like you just accept, the bad days when they come, and, learn from them, figure out what, listen to your body, see what your body's telling you, make some mental notes. What did you eat? What did you drink? So all sorts of things that could potentially affect you. Did you take too many antibacterial things, or is it a Hertz reaction? Is this, is it that, and then you start to learn about the body's systems and what are the things that can help you feel better, and, getting your detoxing at the levels that they should be. And these are all the things I learned before I ultimately found you guys in Huntington. So, I came in there, guns blazing, knowing a lot of things and finding a lot of things, but I was doing so many of the things that you guys are doing there, not to the level of what you're doing it, but I was seeing 4 or 5 different people, and to be able to come to Huntington and have it all under one roof really just put you at ease, and you feel like you're in good hands, and you have to worry less, and that takes, that's a big win.
Yeah.
So
Complex chronic disease, what I've seen is that it forces you to become a very good student of yourself, because no one else is going to truly help you as much as you are. Like you said, you have to become your greatest advocate. And in doing so, you have to become your greatest supporter and also student, and kind of study everything that happens to you. And like you said, there are so many things out there, and I appreciate people sharing their experiences, but I also understand that you can't follow in those footsteps perfectly and expect the same response as that person, because we're all unique. We're all different.
sure.
And I think that's one of the things what my father built with putting everything under one roof, personalizing it, was never meant to be a Lyme type of thing. It's become, we've attracted a lot of Lyme patients because it's an amazing, complex expression that everyone will need unique tools to get out of and to actually heal from. But you going in there already being a great student of yourself, being your own advocate, probably had a leg up. I would imagine you're thinking, I'm coming in here. But what was that experience like after so many years being a student, finding a center like ours where there are so many different options, and we kind of go very, very personalized and try and get you to heal and go beyond just killing bacteria and co-infections? What was the experience like coming into that? Were you, hey, this is the spot, or were you skeptical? Where's your mindset walking into the clinic?
No, and I've learned to be very open-minded. I came in through a referral of a close friend, who's also out here in the Hamptons, and her son was going to you guys prior to me starting, and I was building a crazy house, and I had to get through that project before I could come in. So I worked through it, and I came in with a complete open mind, but having some, knowledge of what you guys do there, especially by looking at the website and seeing some of the things that I was doing on my own, but seeing them all there. So, but it was, of course, quite interesting, and mind-blowing to see how, the initial phases where you come in, you meet, you do the blood, you drop it off on the slides, and then you hear back with the first report. And, I expected you guys to find a lot of things. I didn't think you'd find as much as you did, but that's just the way it goes. And, I always knew heavy metals would be in the mix, and Lyme. And, when you get to a chronic illness level, I knew at that point that it becomes a party, it's for bad things to happen. Once you get to a certain level, Lyme, I always say to some people, Lyme gets a bad name because it's the label for complete dysfunction, but it's not just Lyme. It's co-infections, it's your viral loads, it's Epstein-Barr, it's heavy metals, there's so many different things that are always there, and you have to attack them all, and do it in a sequence. Your body always prioritizes what that is. But you have to go get the bad things, get the bad guys, but you also have to be able to flush out everything that you're trying to eradicate. So it's, and that's how I've always associated the body to almost like a house, and that's what I do. I'm a home builder, but it's systems, and I know, and I correlated it to, in a house, you have the waistlines and everything gets pumped out that way. And then there's the heat systems, which is a pump. It's like a circulatory system in the body. And, so I was like, okay, so if this has to work this way, that has to work that way. So I'm going to buy a rebounder, and I'm going to jump up and down on the rebounder. I'm going to get my lymph going because I got to get the weights going. You got to move, and that's another thing I learned, is that you got to keep moving. You got to get your body in motion, and you got to, keep things fluid if you want, to feel your best, even if you feel like crap, to push through, so much of it's mental toughness, and so much of it's, talking to yourself and saying, okay, this is happening. Let's try something else. Or that didn't work. Shit. So, you just got to keep at it and work through those issues.
One of the tougher things I've noticed for any patient that comes to this sort of medicine is the fact that you got to take responsibility. Like you said, you got to take those actions even when you feel like shit, and that's when it really matters. It's like people always talk about, well, it's nice that, billionaires give charity. It really matters when you don't have much to give something, right? That's when it really counts. When you got billions of dollars, you're just doing it for
Yeah, it's
tax
the bad
purposes,
days,
right?
is when you got to
Yeah.
catch yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the analogy I like to give, because people like, when I get better, I'll start moving again. I'll do that. And it is to say you need to respect your body and the need to rest, right? You don't want to push through anything and actually put yourself in a major
Right.
stressed environment. But you have to be taking certain actions on a daily basis, even when you don't feel like it, to get yourself back to health. And I think that's where a lot of people may falter. When you speak with patients, and I know you speak with Lyme people that reach out to you now, I'm sure, and ask you what you did and everything, like, what's your message to them? Because you're on the other side now, you went through the treatment, you knew it wasn't easy, took years for you to get to where you are. What is your message to people that may just be finding out, hey, I have Lyme disease?
So, I've coined my own term, and people ask, how did you do it, or what, my baseline was always rock solid. I never wanted to give up. I never wanted to what I say to people is, I never wanted to let what was holding me back define me. So I knew at the end of the day that I was not going to give up, and that my baseline, my life force, even when I did the biofeedback at the center, I just said, I'm okay. I'm going to get through this. I'm not going to give up. I am, I've been given an amazing life by my parents and my family. I'm good at my job. I have great friends, and I want to reach my potential as a person. So I just knew that I was gonna figure it out, and I just wasn't gonna give up. So that was always at the very bottom, and what motivated me to keep going and to work through my issues. So I start there, and then I talk to everyone and just say that it's a battle, that it takes time. You have your ups and downs, and I also say, everyone's working and thinking that the lights are going to be turned back on and it's going to be like that, and it's not. It's gradual, and you slowly get there. And you get a little bit better, and a lot of times it's the people in your life around you that notice it more than you do, because then you just kind of start doing more things. You're off the couch, and I was talking to someone I met in the center who I became friends with, and he was up from Texas for 6 weeks or something, and then towards the end of his stay, he went to the city and saw a Broadway show. And he was like, whatever, and he said he was talking to his wife and was like, you went to a Broadway show? Like, you're obviously doing better. And he was like, what are you talking about? It's the people around you that notice it more than you do, because you're just kind of always in your own head. So I say that, and I just, and just say it's a battle, and you take the good with the bad, and you be your own detective, figure it out, and just be in tune with your body, listen to it, and just keep at it until you get there.
Healing is a game of patience, and it's a game of inches, right? And you don't notice the inches. If you look at that day by day, you're like 1 inch, maybe an inch back, maybe this. You look at it month by month, that is feet. You look at by years, it's miles, right? And that's the difference that you're talking about. It's one of the reasons I usually recommend people just, journal and just give yourself a score, whatever you want to be. You could do multiple, like what my sleep was like a 5 today. My energies is a 6, overall I'm a 7. Because when you do that, most people that look back on it, it's like, oh shit, I was like a 3 2 months ago. And now I'm at a 5, which isn't great, I guess, if you're looking at 10s everywhere. You think everyone's a 10. By the way, no one's a 10. But you put yourself in that realm of, like most people, I still don't have this and this, right? I don't have full energy yet. I still don't sleep perfectly yet. Yeah, but you weren't even sleeping 6 months ago, right? You couldn't even get out of bed. You were barely moving. You had pain all over your body. So you got to celebrate small wins in healing. And I love that attitude of just like, never give up. You're going to fall back sometimes, but celebrate the small wins and see something like going into the city and seeing a play is like, wow, that is an accomplishment,
Yeah,
because
no, it
you
sure
couldn't do
is.
it
And
not long ago.
yep. And I found a couple of videos on YouTube that I would watch to help me motivate. There was a good term on that. And I always, thought about it as mental toughness. So, one of the videos, it says you train your mind and your body will follow. So
Mm.
I always knew that I just got to stay mentally tough, and that will help me push through. And then I would just keep trying new things and try to stay active and try to keep my stress levels down. And and then luckily it all came together when I got to the center, and when we did everything and worked through it. And obviously all my issues were nervous system related for the most part, so we did a lot of NAD at the end, and that was super helpful. And then when I was done, like everyone else, like, okay, so how long is it going to take for me to feel my best again? And then everyone's different, of course, and it's stress levels and your life and the things that you do will affect that. But it took me a little bit longer, but than some other people. But that's okay. And I continue to come in. I come in once a year at least. I try to make it twice, but I want to make sure that I'm detoxing, that I'm checking my viral loads, that I'm working through any heavy metals. I'm certainly exposed to a lot of things on the job site where, I had to do 6 rounds of chelation, over the past couple of weeks. I'm obsessed with ozone as a treatment. And you guys have a new machine there, which is pretty exciting.
Have you tried out the EBOO?
I am about to. I've been trying. I
fun.
came in to use it, but I had, all the chelation to do and the detoxing to do, because I was doing a ton of ozone prior to coming in. And that's what, kept me going. I found someone locally in Watermill here in the Hamptons, and I would see her once a week, and I would go and do a couple passes, and that, helped keep me going. And, I did a lot of biomagnetism through someone I met locally. He's a doctor that works in the city at the Morrison Center, but he treats people in New Jersey, where he's from. So he's the first person to introduce me to ozone and talked a lot about heavy metals. So, I hit it up. We become good friends. And, so I had all these sort of tools and ideas and things that we're doing until I got to you guys. And then everything was just happening in one spot. So, that was just such a relief. And, it's funny, like you talk about the gradual progress, and as you gradually get better, you start worrying less, and you start looking, less on the internet for supplements and for things, and you start getting into your hobbies again. And you start listening to music, and you start doing other things, and it's a slow progression. And then you're like, wait a second, I'm not even, because there was just panic for so long, where and I had really bad anxiety and depression, and was always taking a lot of GABA and trying CBDs and stuff to just take the edge off so I can get through my workday and accomplish things. Then, you just kind of stop taking that stuff. You're like, wait a second. So, that's all part of it.
As gradually as you heal is the same gradually as you exit some of those things when you were in that stress state, right? Those extra little pieces, those checking the forums all the time. I hear that about a lot of Lyme patients, like, they get really addicted to the forums, and sometimes it could turn into, I would say, a little bit of a pity party where everyone's like, oh, I got Lyme, it's this, oh, you're going to have to live with it. And you just support each other around that.
Right.
And you become Lyme disease, not, Mike, not Cat. And it just becomes this whole thing. But that's where I hear some patients like, I knew I was really better when I stopped going on there. I didn't need to.
And that makes sense. And I never went down that, it never went in that direction. I would find people, especially out here, and I find the people who had success, and then you trade notes, like, you come like a nerd, like, hey, what did you do? And I'm like very into this stuff. And I also realized that I'm good at biology, and good, I have a physics brain when it comes to building a home and heat transfer and heating a house and efficiency and insulation and all those things. But then I figured out, like, wow, like I kind of get this stuff. So and then you find smart people, and then you become friendly with them and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then you kind of geek out on stuff and say, oh, that makes sense. Let me try it. And some things work, some things don't, but you really learn a lot. And I've turned it into a hobby. Like I said in some of my intro stuff that I sent over, is that I love, wellness now. I love, the anti-aging type stuff, because that's sort of where it leads you, and you learn so much, and you want to do what your body wants you to do. And, live a cleaner lifestyle, put better things into your body, take the right supplements, stay active, and keep stress levels down, keep your mind clear, so all those sort of things. So, it's exciting for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we originally met right after I was on Dave Asprey, right? Biohacking. And we kind of talked a little bit about that years ago. And I know you're into it now. And that's the interesting part I've seen, is like patients got to worry about just getting to a baseline of okay, of like, all right, I could just go on and I'm not sick. But then you start to be like, okay, let me keep optimizing. Let me move it over. And that's where I do find biohacking is amazing. It's this optimization of the human biology to be your best. So I know you've been biohacker, like you're into that and everything. What are some of your best biohacking secrets now that you're healthy and able to do them?
Well, yeah, I haven't been watching or listening to his podcast as of late, and I get into get streaky with it. But for sure, I intermittent fast every day, 6 days a week. So if I'm working, I usually work Saturdays. I will make a bulletproof coffee in the morning, but of course, I now use Bones coffee, which is yes, the NYCIM
we approved
coffee. I brought in
no mold.
I brought in a Dave Asprey coffee that was mineralized, his Danger coffee, and then Aaron swatted that very quickly. So I switched it over to Bones. So I make that with the brain octane oil and the butter. Use some collagen protein. So I don't know that's a necessarily perfect fast if you're putting the protein in and you got to read certain things. But at the end of the day, it's a reduced eating window. So I will definitely skip breakfast and have a late lunch, if at all. If depending on how hungry I am or where I am in that day. So that's definitely one main thing that I do. And I don't do that 7 days a week. I do it 6. So on Sunday, because you do want to eat more than not. It's not good to do every day. So I'll do that. The other is some of the supplements like Natavim, which is one of you guys' products, which is just amazing. So doing the NAD stuff for longevity. The spermidine is another product that you guys also have, and I've listened to a ton of podcasts about that. David Sinclair is one of the longevity experts out there, so I bought his book and I geeked out on that for a while. Resveratrol, and so I have and then a few other supplements, and I tend to get a little too far into it. So the more I come in, the better it is, because I'll come in with a whole bunch of stuff and then it's a little too much. So I got to rein myself in at times. But, I find the good brands of stuff and that you guys like. And then if I find something new or I'm onto something new, I'll bring it in. And then, mineral supplementation too is pretty exciting. A lot of people are talking about it. So the Quicksilver hypertonic, I think it's called. So I'll do that and try that stuff out. So that's really kind of where I'm at right now.
It's always amazing to hear patients that were at one point suffering, didn't know anything about this. And now here you are healthy doing this. Do you ever look back and be like, that I got Lyme disease for a reason? And I bless that I went through this. Do you do that?
I do. And I was never, if I talked to my parents a lot about it and, my wife and, I never was mad that I got Lyme, and I look back at it and I'm like, damn, I lost my 30s to Lyme, but I'm so much better for it, and I just wanted to get through it as quickly as possible, and I never was going to give up. And I never had a big chip on my shoulder and was like, poor me. Because I also was, just like I said before, I feel blessed that I am who I am, and I wanted to achieve the success that I always intended on doing. It just took longer than I had hoped, but without question, I am better for it. I know so much about health and wellness, and I'm able to help a lot of people and talk to a lot of people about it. So, yeah, of course, you come through every challenging situation better than before, and those are the being uncomfortable and being in tough situations is what defines you as a person, at the end of the day. So you got to, look at it that way. I don't look at it and say, oh, I'm happy I got it. Like, I don't know who or where I'd be if I didn't.
Yep.
But I'm good. I'm proud of my efforts. I feel it's funny. I just talked to someone the other day who was a Lyme guy, and I feel battle tested. I feel like I can handle anything, and I don't get upset, where most people are like, oh, well, like you've just kind of been through it. So you just say, okay, and that's a huge lesson in life, to be able to remain calm in the tough times and just say, that's also being a builder where things go wrong a lot of the days. But more so on a personal level, like, when you cross something that tough, you're ready. You're ready to go, and you're gonna dig your heels in and remain calm and collect the details and then attack. So it's I'm for sure a better person for it on many levels.
The challenges and hardships of disease really do make you prepared for, whatever may come in the future, and make you a stronger person. I feel like today we try and run away from everything. You could have kept taking the antibiotics, done the easy route almost, and said, all right, I'm just going to live with this. I'll get a little worse. Sometimes I'll keep popping pills all the time, and whatever symptom comes up, my doctor will give me something for it, and that'll be the end of it, right? But you said, no, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to win. I'm going to come out stronger. And you did. And yes, you sacrificed your 30s, but I think now you're looking at 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right? Are going to be better and better. I mean, you're going to live to 120, right?
To go into 100. I always mess
Exactly.
with my family, my brothers, and I watch them eat what they eat and drink what they drink. So we tease each other. But, it's funny. I look back, and I also tell people, after I had my initial struggle, and if I didn't find the local alternative doctor here, who we're still close with, and he's the first person that told me I had Lyme, but it wasn't just Lyme. He did a lot of kinesiology on me and said there's other things happening. I don't know where I'd be, because I would have listened to my family doctor, and I would have said, it's in my head. Get on an antidepressant, get on something, And what I also learned from him is that, a lot of Western medicine treats symptoms and not the problem, and that's a big thing to realize, because like, okay, what's your symptom? Oh, let me give you this. I'm like, well, that's not really going to do it. It's not going to like fix the problem. So I learned that, but I just, if I didn't find, the doctor out here, I tell people I'd probably be on my parents' couch, licking my wounds and, just living with it and accepting my fate of being Lyme. But, I didn't go in that direction, luckily. And I was able to kind of pinball around and find my way. But, and a lot of this treatment and all these things that you do, cost a lot of money, and they take time, they take resources, and I also thought about that along the way. And I thought about how many people can't do that, and don't have that opportunity. So I also felt blessed about that. And I felt motivated. That motivated me also to kind of work through it, and I thought about people in distressed areas that, have Lyme or have Lyme, and they have no idea what it is, and their doctors have no idea what it is. And then, it's all an expression at the end of the day for for who you are genetically, and it'll lead to something that you can't fix, right? It'll turn into cancer, or it could turn into Parkinson's. I think for me, genetically, it would be Parkinson's.
Mhm.
And I met the biomagnetic doctor initially, and he did his first scan on me. And he's like, "How are you even walking around, or
Mm.
let alone building like 3 houses?" He's like, "You're on your way to something you can't fix." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" But when you start realizing that, and that just motivated me more to kind of just keep at it and keep figuring it out, because I was always felt blessed at the end of the day. So.
And Matt, you are a warrior, a survivor, and a thriver. I mean, that's what it takes, to win over a disease like this, especially one that so many, as you heard, tell you got to live with. You have to have that mentality that you're going to beat it. So, thank you so much for sharing that, because it is the mentality so many people need these days to overcome what most of society is dealing with: chronic disease. So thank you. Do you have
Yeah.
any final messages for anyone out there suffering from Lyme right now?
No, that's it. I think I covered it. But like I said, with my little coin term, is just don't let what holds you back define you, and and just push on through. And if you have a bad day, chalk it up and say, "Okay, you win. I'm going to get some rest, and I'm going to come back again tomorrow and keep at it until you figure it out." Because like you said, you'll become a better person after the fact, because you learn so much, and then you can help the people around you, and that's always nice too.
Well,
So.
it's an amazing message, and thank you for sharing it. And I hope today is an amazing day. It looks like it's sunny in New York. I could see it shining through on you
Yeah,
right
it
now. So
is.
that's a
Yeah, it's
good
nice.
thing, right?
Nice spring day. So
It's
that's for
it's a
sure.
beautiful spring day out there. So enjoy it. And thank you again for sharing your
Yeah, no
message.
problem. All
As you
right.
heard, Lyme is a tricky disease to beat, but if you don't, if you don't let it become chronic and you don't give up, you can absolutely beat it. And life can even become greater on the other side of illness. So until next time, continue writing your own healing story.